Hello, welcome to my channel. The main rule for the quilting is that there are no rules. You will learn, you will watch others, and you will find the methods and ways of quilting that works for you. And that's the most important thing, because you need to find what works for you to be able to enjoy the process. What you will see is my process of working with different materials and different designs, and I hope some of those tips and tricks will help you in your own journey. Hi everyone, welcome to Pola Quilting. Today another top with the strings and my pillowcases bits and pieces. So do you remember this quilt? So that's the quilt I did, quilt as you go with the flannel. And I was just planning to back it with something and you know, quilt it and job done. However, I did also say on that tutorial that you know, when it's so nice to touch and soft and warm, so I actually decided to make it double-sided quilt. So for that reason I've got my squares from the pillowcases, and I've got a bucket of strings. Normally I would not go as far as designing anything, because when you're working with scraps, at least for me, I don't have to design anything. I just go with the flow, make so many blocks, see if it's enough. If not enough, I will carry on. But because I know what surface I need to cover, because I've got ready quilt, I kind of want to make a little bit of design to mix those scraps of the pillowcases squares with the strings. So what I want to make is a block or columns of the blocks, which will be combined with 6 by 6.5 by 6.5 square, and then to this I will be adding either 2.5 bit of the strings or 4.5 bit of the strings. That will be kind of module for me. So I work on the magic numbers blocks. If you haven't heard what the magic numbers are, it's anything you would divide by 2 and then you would add half an inch for the seam allowances. So my blocks are 6.5 inches, and then I will add 2.5 inch of the strings. I will put another 6.5 inch block, and I will add 4.5 inch strings. I will just kind of grey out the strings part so I know what I'm looking at. So then I will have another 6.5 inch square, and then again I can either go with, you know, 2.5, 4.5, 2.5, 4.5, or just 2.5s or just 4.5s. However I feel like, but you know, just to mix it up, I will put another 4.5 inch here. Then I've got 6.5, let's put 2.5 here, 6.5, let's put another 2.5, 6.5, let's put 4.5, 6.5, let's put, let's just see what we've got left. If I would like to finish with the actual square, I would need to put, okay, so if I put here 2.5, another one, and then I will do 6.5. However I look at it, I will need to finish with something else, so that's fine. I don't mind either way. As far as I know how many of those I want to make, it's fine with me. So let's do 6.5, 4.5 here, and then I've got 6.5 and a 4.5 here. And I could go, you know, column by column and design each of those columns individually, but what other thing I can do is just make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those columns, and then the next column would just go start other way around. So I will have a 4.5 inch here, 6.5. That way I know I won't have anywhere seams I need to really match, which is easy, you know, project for beginners. 9 columns I need to fill in, and that's for the quilt I've made. You obviously you might have a different dimensions. To make it up to what I need, I will also need to add on the sides 2 inches border, and I might decide to use something I did on the adding tape, or maybe some string scraps, I will see. So in each column I will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the squares. So 6.5 inch squares, I've got 8 times 9. Then I will have 1, 2, 3, 4 strips, which will be 2.5, and 1, 2, 3, 4 strips, which will be 4.5. So this is how many pieces I need to make to get to the dimension I want for that front. If you like this type of paper and other bits and pieces which were included in the video, I will link to the video, and I will also link to the my group page where you can download it for free. Okay, so I now need to choose which squares I would like to use for this quilt. So 8 times 9, I need 72 of those squares. I will need 36 pieces of the smaller ones, which is 2.5 inch, and then 36 of 4.5 inch strings. 72 squares. So I've got a big pile here. In my few previous quilts made from those squares, which I will link as well below, I was choosing 2 designs only. Now my back of the quilt will be very colorful, so I don't have to kind of stick to 2 colors only. I can choose whatever I want. I like that blue, I really like that blue, so I will choose all of those, and then I will add some other colors to it to make it up to 72. And then strings. So I will trim my strings because it's easier to work with shorter pieces, and I need them to be 6.5 when they will be trimmed, and then obviously it will be either 2.5 or 4.5, depend of the piece. But I will trim them to about 8 or 9 inches even. And why I do that is because if I choose to trim them to 7 inches, because then I can, you know, square them, whatever I cut out from it, I'm gonna have to throw away. There's no way I can use it up. But if I cut it to about 9.5 inches, when I trim it 6.5, I will have at least maybe 2.5 inches of the nice strip I can use in another project. And I already got some of that type of leftovers from my previous tutorial, so when I make this one, that should be enough for me to finish my next project, and obviously I will post a tutorial about this one as well. So just try to think a little bit of ahead if you have a lot of strings, because if you don't have a lot, then obviously you need to make sure you will be able to do it that way. But if you have a lot, just think ahead, what could you use it for. Have a look at my tutorials as well, that can give you some inspiration. Okay, so I'm not going to be doing any color coordinating with those strings. I literally need the widths to be the 2.5 or 4.5, and like I said, I will go with at least 9. So I will pull out all of my strings which are long enough to trim them to 9, have a pile of those on side, and start putting them through. And I will need 72 altogether, so I know that I would need to have at least 72 beginnings and then add more strings to it, so that should be quite quick sewing to do. So I'm just trying to pick up the strings from my string bucket, but it looks like I'm running out of the nicer pieces. So if you have seen my scrap management video, you know I'm cutting my bits, my leftovers, into 1.5 or 2.5 strips. So I've got quite a lot of those from the recent bucket when I was emptying the scrap, so I will use that one as well to add some nicer pieces to it. I'm just sorting them on the cutting mat here, making sure they got at least 9 inches in the length, and I will just stack them and cut them, making a pile of those strips ready to chain piece for the sets. Now all of those offcuts, I will go through them in a minute when I finish cutting bigger pieces, and anything like that will go to another bucket which I'm putting aside for the adding tape. Anything smaller, it's either going to go to crumb boxes or they will just go to the bin. Those are scraps already, so I'm not so worried about throwing away stuff, but I will definitely go through them and put them in the relevant boxes for further use. This is a pile of my starter, so I need 72 of those string blocks, so I've got 72 pieces here, and then I've got another pile to add to it. If I'm using 1.5 inch strip, then obviously 2 of those strips would make the block I need, but I might decide actually sew 3 pieces together and then trim them on the side to make more colors in one block. But again, depending on what you're working with, you might choose just to use 2 pieces, 1.5 inch, and that's it. I do not know yet how I will go about it. It will just come as I go along with it. So I will now chain piece all of those until I've got required width of that strip. I will take it to the ironing board and I will use starch when I'm ironing them. I always use starch on the strings. It just make it easier to work with it later when you need to trim it. And once I've got those blocks ready, I'll be able to set out the blocks with those pieces and put the top together. Right, so I finish stitching and squaring up my scrap strings. So here's the batch of 6.5 by 4.5. They came out quite nicely, and as mentioned on number of occasions across my tutorials, I do starch them in the last ironings before I start squaring, because then it's nice to work with. Whatever fabric you mixed or you use to make those, this one is quite thin, those are thicker ones, but because it has been starched, I was easily able to cut it. And those are my 2.5 inch scraps, so those are ready to go with the blocks. So I've got 9 columns to fill in, and each column got 8 6.5 inch square plus the scraps. So the plan is that I will sew all of those rows exactly the same way, and then obviously I will turn them around every second. Let's have a look on the design board if there's something else we could make out of those blocks. Okay, so here I've got just plain solid color with those 2.5 inches, and that would make nice calm quilt. There's not a lot of happening here, but all of those bits here would bring it out together nicely, and you have the opportunity to use those squares to put some nice quilting on it as well, so it depends how you like it. If I turn it this way, same design but this way. Now here I haven't changed anything block wise, I only turn it around and it looks straight away so much different. So you have opportunity here to play with the layout. Let's have a look how it will look with those wider bits and maybe different fabric as well. So here we've got another option with the wider strips, looks very nice too. And to be fair, if you just replace those blocks with 6.5 strip blocks, that would be a great block too. So a part of the design I'm going with, there are a few options you can use up those blocks as well, and you can mix it with your plain fabrics, or maybe you have a big piece of one type of fabric, so throwing those colorful patches there will kind of bring another layer of the design to it. So I have a play with it. So I will now sew my columns or rows of the quilt, put it all together, and I will show you how it looks at the end. So I quite look forward to that quilt, and I have to make it quite fairly quickly because we're going for camping in the next 2 weeks, and that's one of the quilts I'll be taking with me, so I better get going. So before I show you what the quilt looks like, I've got all of those scraps I was telling you about. It when I'm doing the string ones, I just always cut them a little bit longer so I can have some usable fabrics out of it. So be sure to watch next video to see what I made out of those. And here it is, my finished top or back, depends how I will use that quilt, to go on the other side of my flannel one. To be fair, when I was putting those fabrics together, I wasn't very impressed with them, because you know, those fabrics from the pillowcases are not the most beautiful ones, but now when I've put it all together, it's quite nice. I think it's all in those pops of random strings in between that adds a nice character to it. So yes, I'm very happy. So next stage will be to sandwich it, quilt it, you know, do the other finishing of bits and pieces. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial on how to use up some of your scraps. Please subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Please leave your thumbs up. Please leave comments if you have any, or any questions. If you would like to see how that quilt will look when it's all put together with the other side, please join me on my Facebook page or Facebook group, or you can also follow me on Instagram or Pinterest. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel to support my work. For further inspiration and examples of my work, you can check my Instagram or Facebook page. Happy creating!